Scenery. So the Scenery Achievement Program, it's a really fun part of it. I like it. I know a lot of you guys are doing scenery parts for your layouts. What makes a big difference on it. It takes your cars, it takes your locos, it takes the structures and puts it all together. It gives you that entire scene so you get a whole package out of it. So there's a lot of pictures in here. There's ones that I've pulled off the internet. John Allen's one of the guys that you guys have probably heard about if you've been in the model railroading a lot. So John Allen's early in the railroading history of doing model railroad scenery, promoted it very well. A lot of people talk about him being the wizard of it. A lot of advertisements, a lot of articles, a lot of photographs of his layout over the years done on it. Anybody recognize what this one is? George Stelios. Okay, a lot of heavy industrial, a lot of structures on it. So kind of like what Greg did earlier, all these structures, you put these structures and you put them on the shelf, it looks great. You've done all those, you get them in with the scenery, now you've got a theme, you've got a whole diorama, a whole vision for what you're doing with on it. So what we'll do is we're going to kind of go through it. The first part I'm just going to kind of breeze through it. It's a lot of yada, yada, yada about it on it. And then we'll talk more about how you do the paperwork and everything. We'll get into that of it. So this is the NMRA webpage. Gives you that first step into it, gives you all your parts of it. Just like Greg was talking about with the structures part, the NMRA has a separate page just talking about the scenery. Again, don't read into it too much. Greg talked about going in between the lines, reading between the lines, seeing where your parameters are on it. Don't read too deeply into it. Don't run your brains in circles on it, okay? There's not a whole lot with on it. A lot of it has to do with just making things blend. You don't want to have a desert scene right next to an urban scene, right next to a jungle scene, right? They want to blend them, unless you're doing what? You're building 3 or 4 different modules, and that's what you're doing. So a modular, somebody that's in a modular club can get the scenery on it, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You don't have to build a home layout. You could do it for a modular layout club. And I know plenty of guys that have built N-track modules or HO scale modulars, and they have done 4, 5, 6 different modules, totally different scenes on each one of them. They don't interconnect, but they are individual, and it's based upon the number of square feet that you have. Okay, so I mentioned about that. 4x8. Here's your typical 4x8 foot HO plywood Pacific that they've now decorated on it. For HO, that's what you're looking for. It's 32 square feet. A 4x8 piece of plywood is 4 feet by 8 feet, right? 32 square feet. HO and N is all proportionate in the different directions off of that. Bench work, you're looking at your bench work on it. Your bench work is what's going to build your forms underneath it. So you have to give that structure, that stability underneath it, whether it's a module or whether it's a complete home layout. Okay? Helps you build it, get your landforms, gives them something to be able to support it off of it. Whether you're using foam, ceiling tiles for the rocks, you're using plaster, hydrocal, casting stuff, it's all different parts. Everything that you're going to mix onto it, this is what's going to give you that stability. There's nothing more frustrating, and I can tell you from doing track work and everything else when you're building a layout, is to have that there and have something flex, and all of a sudden the rock work that you've built cracks and it separates or it pops off and falls. Okay, so don't skimp out on your bench work and your base underneath it. That's what's going to give you parts of it.
I've seen articles where people are now using ceiling tiles and cutting those back. Do you have experience with that?
There's, so what the question was that they're using the ceiling tiles. How many of you guys know of, I just spaced his name, Ken, that does the Model Railroading Hobbyist YouTube video series. Ken Patterson. He had a fire in his basement, in his layout, back right before Christmas. They attributed to a short. Local ran across, he left the layout running, the local came across, hit a turnout, shorted out, he didn't have enough breakers in it, started a fire, started burning the foam. Fortunately, he was still at home, was able to put the fire out, but not before too much damage. He was a big proponent of using the foam, so he built the wood frame, filled it all out nice and neat, and then was using the 2-inch foam, layering it. He feels that part of that contributed to a lot of the smoke was because of the foam. So now some guys are using a proponent of using the ceiling tiles because some of that is less inherent to catching fire as easy. It's still going to burn because what's the ceiling tile? What are they? It's paper, it's compressed paper, unless you get the ones that are flame retardant or drywall. There are some guys that are using sheetrock, drywall, as the base underneath it, and then building up layers on that. What's the problem with using sheetrock? You've got dust, you've got weight. You can accommodate the dust because if you wet it down a little bit and you do it, just like if you're doing walls and everything, if you're sanding it down, if you do a wet sand on it instead of a dry sand, you don't get the dust going everywhere. You can smooth it out that way, control your dust. The ceiling tiles, using those, I've seen a lot of guys, Jim Six, he was a proponent of using it. He would build up all his landforms on it. He would have a base and then build up ceiling tiles and carve rocks into those. It's what you figure out on what you want to do it. On my layout, and I'll show you some pictures on it, I know a lot of other guys, you've used everything. I have used cast plaster, carved plaster, the foam, carved the foam, used the ceiling tiles, used cork, you can use whatever. So it's just use your imagination on it. Okay, here I'm talking about that. So up in the top part shows a landform that I was working on. That is all just cast rocks out of the plaster, okay? I was using some cast plaster, and then I had some hydrocal mixed in with it because I had some of it sitting there, and then I dumped some gypsolite in it that I think Greg gave me a bucket of it that I was using. Gypsolite is just a plaster that's got a little bit of grit in it. So it gives it that nice texture on it. You dump a little paint into it, you give it that base color, so that way if you do nick it somewhere, you don't get that glaring white showing through it. You drill holes for trees or for power poles, you don't have that white hole. You put a little paint in there, it gives you that scene for it, okay? So I'm not trying to give you a scenery clinic, but just kind of give you some of the background to give you a help on it as you do it. Landforms, ground cover bases, a lot of it has to do with different layers of it, okay? You don't want to have all the same color. You look out in scenery, out in the trees, out across the hills, at a distance you may get that same color all the way across it, but as you get closer to it, you'll see different forms, different colors, different shapes, different textures. That's the whole part about the scenery, the ground form, is getting that mix in between them all. Mr. Marty, I told him I was going to use one of his photos from his layout. That's off of his layout, when it's Central Vermont. Great autumn scenery. The blending of how everything blends in together, and then a photo down below of what an actual autumn scene is. It's not so much that you're using those exact colors straight from the bottle, it's a blending of them and getting to tone them down or to brighten them up however that you need to it. The other part with that photo that's really good is you look at the trees, what happens in the autumn. Even in the summertime, you look at trees. When you're getting close up, it's not a solid mass, okay? At a distance, it looks solid, right? But when you're closer up to them, you can see through a lot of it. There's a lot of airiness and space into it. So when you're at a farther distance, that's when you get that denseness. So that gives you your perception of distance as well. So the more thicker that density is, the more perceptions you have of distance for it. Okay, roads and structures. It's a big deal. This is probably one of the toughest ones I have for myself, is getting roads down correctly. Okay, so again, this is from, how many of you guys watch the Boomer dioramas videos on YouTube? Okay, only a couple of you guys. Boomer diorama. He is a theater, I think he did theater stage production work. So he's got a series of YouTube videos that he puts out on a regular basis. He talks about everything about building his, he started with the River Road, and now he's gone through a couple of sceneries since then. He puts out these videos on it, talks a lot about details, and he picks out one little spot and kind of works his way through it. This is off of one of his videos, a screenshot I captured of it. And then I believe that's one off of Lance Mannheim. Lance has also got a good series of videos and books and website work there. You can get a lot of that where you can get those details. Google Street View. Pop a Google Street View up, pull where you're looking at modeling, and then copy it, mimic it. Don't try and imagine alpha. You can look at there and see what you've already got there. Just follow along with it. Okay, this is off of my layout, the Twin Arch Stone Bridge. That was just, it's a cast model of that was already came in like that. The white, that is not the water. That is the water going in while it's still wet. Okay, I use gloss medium. I've tried the resins. I've tried the Woodland Scenics types. I've used multiple other ones. I like this one, the gloss medium. I've had the best luck with it, so I stick with it. The other scene there, that's also on my layout. It's around the corner from where this one's at. So you get that depth of color from the painting underneath it, and then you also get your sticks in it and the logs that are floated down. Everything is grown into it, so it gives you that texture and also gives you that sense of movement in the water, unless you're looking at a glass flat lake that doesn't have any water or air blowing across it. Backdrops, kind of getting this blend into it. One of the guys over at the Rockville Club, Kelly Reagan, that's his. He surprised me with the video or the photos he's been sharing of his backdrop. He was like, nah, I'm kind of doing the backdrop and all of a sudden he posts this picture onto it, and it's impressive just from looking at it close and at a distance what he's done with it. And he says all he did was just some sponges, and he started doing some work, and he was giving this whole talk about how he was doing it, and it's like I was pretty impressed with it on how it came out. You don't have to have a photo backdrop. You can do something very simple like that. And it's, you know how you do it? You practice, because if it doesn't come out good the first time, what do you do? You paint over it, or you just keep adding another layer on top of it. It's that simple, really. Okay, a little bit more details into it. The one on the bottom, that's a gas station I built, the dog eating out of the trash can. How uncommon is that? That's one of those details Greg talked about with your structure. This section on for the senior AP talks about weathering and realism and how it all sits into it. So whereas this gets you points for the structure part of it, this also gets you into that scenery part of it and kind of expands upon that some more. The other part in the photo there gives you that sense of, okay, you've got ballast, you've got the track, you've got the scenery, how does that all blend into it? Back before the 1940s and all, maybe even the 50s, what did the track work look like? Very fine lines between where the ballast was, very cut lines. The guys took very impressive pride in what they were doing. It went mechanized after that mostly, right? So now it's still there, but it's not quite as precise and everything with it, so it's a little bit more on it. So also you look at, there's a fence line, there's trees, there's bushes, there's different types of bushes. So all that's a different part of scenery that you're going to blend into it. This is kind of an inspiration, Maryland Midland photo. This is kind of the area that I model, but it gives you that sense, so it gives you that idea of how you can copy what you're looking at for modeling on it. It gives you that sense on it. I'm modeling mid-September, right before it starts to get into Marty's era. He's really into the orangey autumn scene on it. I'm going to be right before that part of it. Detailed scenes as far as how the structures and your details fit into it. This is from Paul Dolkos's layout. I know his layout moved on and he's living with somebody else now on it since he passed. But his Baltimore scene like that is iconic of what downtown Baltimore would look like, right? If you guys know that area. My layout's something I just did with a little industrial scene for a steel plant that's in a receiving yard of it. It's got the overhead crane, got the lots of details that drop into it. The bottom part of it, where it's the deck on the bottom, is just a concrete pad that's down there. Carved the lines into it with a little Sharpie marker, put a line into it, layers of weathering. Painted one color and then just multiple light washes, giving you that depth and that changes in colors and the cracks in the concrete. Mimic your prototype, some old photos of what you're doing. These aren't mistakes, so don't take that as that's what I'm doing, but the common mistakes is that when we're talking about using one texture, buying one jar of scenery material and using that on your entire layout or in that whole section of it, using one color for it, using one paint color for the entire thing on it. We've all got stashes of stuff, right? There's stuff that's in buckets and jars and everything like that. You take one color, you take another color, mix them together a little bit, you got a different one. So now you don't have something exactly the same with it. It gives you that blending in between them. All right? Okay. Don't let the AP thing turn into a train wreck for you. All right? So the whole gist of it is that's the idea, is that there's a lot of documentation with it. Greg was with it. The structures one, you've got 12 separate ones because you've got 12 separate structures. The scenery one, there's a lot of documentation with it, but it's not quite that as intense. All right? What you're looking for, what the evaluators are looking for, is that you are able to use different techniques, different materials, different styles of how you're blending in this all together and kind of get it to working for what you're wanting to do on it. And again, it doesn't have to be on your entire layout. My layout is 27 by 19 in the room, okay? I'm right now working on my AP for it. I've got all my paperwork in, and as soon as I get the evaluators over to the house on it, with any luck, it'll pass on and get on its way up the road, okay? But out of that whole thing on it, I'm about, some of you guys were over did with the layout tours here, I'm what, about 60%, 70% scenery-wise on it? I'm about that point. but I've got enough of it that I've detailed those sections on it, and it gets me enough for the square footage. I'm well over the number of square footage on it. So I hope Martin will come over and tell me no and then make me go do it over again. So, all right, tools and supplies. There are so many different tools and supplies. You don't have to buy supplies. They talk about a static king, a $100 static maker. You don't have to buy that. You can make your own. I made mine out of a bug zapper. Those little electronic bug zappers, I made my static applicator out of that. There's an online link for it. There's instructions for it. It costs you 10 bucks. Does it work as well as those $100 ones? No. But I've got $5 into it in an hour. And it works for me. Can you buy mats? Can you buy the clumps on stuff? Sure, you can buy all that. That all counts towards it. It's just taking those different ones and blending it all together. A lot of tools, all different kind of tools. Keep track of your tools and what you're doing for it. Again, I relate back to Greg because you already heard from this. Keep track of your stuff as you're going forward. If you've already got into this and you start looking at doing your AP for scenery, stop, take a day. It's a good day today, tomorrow, this weekend because we got a bunch of rain, right? So we're inside. If you're thinking about this, stop, take an hour or two, write some notes, and start making yourself a folder and start keeping track of it now. You don't have to make it all nice and pretty. Just start doing some scribble notes, sticky notes, put them in the folder, and save it there for you for next time. And as you get to the point, then you got it there and you don't have to remember at all off the top of your head. Take a look at this. This is off of, there's a proto layouts group that's on the Yahoo groups, groups.io, and these guys are always talking about it. Clark Props and a bunch of other guys. You see these guys in a lot of the news articles online for Model Railroad Hobbyist, Model Railroader Magazine, the NMRA. You see a lot of them with the articles. This is where these guys are developing a lot of this stuff, and then all of a sudden you see this photo 5, 6 months, a year later, all of a sudden you see this photo in an article, and it's like, hey, I've seen that before. Because I'm in that group on it, and you see them where they're developing this. You take a look at this photo, look at the depth that's there. Look at all the different textures, the different shades of colors, the different things in there. You see the right-of-way that's there with the track and all, that's part of your scenery, right? Ballast, while it's part of track work and it's under civil, when you start putting ballast into it and you change the color and all, now it fills in with your scenery. You look at the fields, you've got one kind of field at the bottom. I believe that's a soybean field that's in the bottom that he's looking at doing. They've got a fence line there where they've put the post into it. The corners have the bracing into it. More of those details, those little things that are nuances that you pick up on it. The weathering of the structures. Scenery AP does not grade or evaluate the structures themselves. That's the structures part. What it evaluates is the structures in the scene. Do they fit? Okay? So you can see how it's blended into it. You don't see the foundation sticking out with a hard line. It's blended into it, unless it's supposed to be a hard foundation that's up next to like a sidewalk or concrete like that, where it blends into it. The backdrop. They've taken a very thin photo backdrop. You don't have to buy these expensive ones. You can make your own, print them out. You can print them at Walgreens, Walmart. These guys, some of these, they've taken their photos, stitched them together, sent them to Walmart, and printed them on a banner. And then they'll print one and another and flip it and 4 or 5 times. And now they've printed this and they cut it out and then put that on their photo background. So it gives you that sense of depth on it. The evaluation criteria, we talked about the spacing on it, the size of it. It's pretty much based off of a 4x8 for HO scale. O scale, it's going to be a little bit more. N scale, it's a little bit less. If it's the modulars, you got to figure a typical module is 2x4, right? Now you get the T-tracks, you get the square foot, what's the ones where it's the tabletop guys where they're doing just a 1 foot square parts? Is that the T-track? Okay, so they're doing small ones like that that kind of build in together like that. You're going to have to build more of it because it's going to have to come up to 32 square feet for HO, but the rest of it is just all proportioned off of that. The whole idea of the AP for scenery is getting this all built in so that way it all blends and how does it look as a whole. First part of it is terrain. Looking at the ground, the natural features of how you've built them in there. They're looking for the different types of features, the different forms that you've used, how well you've implemented, how well you've blended the colors, and how well it's constructed on it. Having a nice stream like that and then your bench work fails because somebody bumped into it and it cracked, that's going to mess it up. So that's where I talk about bench work being secure. It gives you that good solid base to work off of it. Okay? Colors, you just take it and blend into colors. Use the different colors to give you different tones as it goes through it. Structures, how do the structures blend into it? This is an octagon interlocking tower that I built. This was out of I scratch built one, but this one was out of a City Classics company house kit. There was a contest that we were doing of, hey, you had to take this house kit, bust it up and make something else out of it. So I just copied my other one for it. So how does it blend into it? You've got the base underneath it. I used a piece of the blue insulation foam, carved stone, colored it, sank it into it, and got the structure on top of it. Okay? It's all how it blends into it. Build weeds up on it. You can't always use bushes up against the house or against the building to hide your foundation seam. You can do that sometimes if it fits in with it, but that doesn't always fit the seam, right? Old part of my layout, there's a story to the other picture, I'll tell you, but this is the old part of it when I first started with it. Doesn't look a whole lot like this now. This whole end section here is all now scenery. This is probably about a year into it. And I started building my layout in 2021, right after COVID started, right about then. So got into it. This whole backside here is done. This whole loop here on the end's done. So just kind of a base part of it. The photo, and the whole purpose of this photo is the ceiling, okay? My layout's in the basement of the house. House is air conditioned, heated and all. The guys came in, they did the sheetrock and all that for it because I'm not lifting sheetrock at all, but I painted the walls, I put in the flooring myself. I gave myself those creature comforts on it, but I painted the ceiling. The whole purpose of painting the ceiling, some guys will do it as a diorama where they paint it black at the top to kind of bring it down, that theater effect. I wanted to keep it more light, a little bit brighter on it to reflect the light, so I painted it gray. Well, that was my personal protective equipment. My joke with my wife, she was harassing me saying, hey, what are you doing for it and all? So I just kind of put on a bag. I had a Tyvek suit and a hoodie and the mask and everything on it because I was just in there and I got a sprayer and I just went like that. That was probably the best thing I did because of the other layouts I've had and other people I've talked to that had layouts in basements or other places. What's the biggest bugaboo on your layout? Dust, okay? This helps seal that. Besides having a hard deck ceiling in it or dropping in ceiling tiles, this helped me seal it, kept all the stuff open in the top for easy access to it in case you have to do repairs later. Okay, works for me. Other things I've seen guys do is they'll take sheetrock and they will cut panels, drop them up in there between the joists and drop them in like ceiling tiles without actually building a ceiling tile on it. Something else that gets you for that. Reason for I bring this up is that helps you with that dust on your scenery. It helps protect it so that way you're not getting all that dust on it and you're having to clean it all the time. Okay. Lighting. You can use your layout completely as a daytime scene. Some guys will build it, they'll put the blue lights in, they'll put the string lights across it, they'll light up their structures. Great, even more points for it. You don't have to make it for a nighttime scene, but you accommodate for it. So if you've got good overall lighting for your layout, and then on the structures, I've got one that shows up there in the top of it. If you look right up there on that one, this is a Walters kit. It was the grain mill. The grain elevator. I took it, I built this thing, totally turned it around. It doesn't have an outside ladder. I added the outside ladder, added lights, added signs. Greg talked about the structures and adding details to it. You can take these pre-built ones and add a whole bunch of details to it and change it around. Adding these outside lights to it is one of those things that accommodates that for you. Realism conformity, kind of more for it. The first photo I had up is I modeled the Northern Central up there in York County, Pennsylvania. It ran from Baltimore on up to York and up to New York. So it was an early railroad, so they used a lot of stone arch bridges, a lot of smaller stone arch ones. This one here, Woodland Scenics makes ones that are already cast. I've made 4 or 5, I think I have 11 different water crossings right now. And half of them are stone arches. And 1 or 2 of them are the Woodland Scenics. The other ones I've taken blue or the pink foam and just carved it and then painted it. And then you drop them in there, you put a little bit of water into it, and away you go. The whole thing with that scenery is blending it in, getting that brush and getting it covered up. The one clinic that we did last year was, I talked about doing, making your own ground cover. You get some leaves in the autumn, dry them out, grind them up in the blender, and then you use that to sift them out and get different layers for it. Works great. When you're doing yard work, pulling the weeds out, you get those super fine mesh in the roots. Those are great. You flip it upside down, now you've got a tree. Now you've got dead trees. How many times do you see a dead tree in real life? All the time, right? Deadfall on it. How many times do we actually see that modeled? Very rarely. All right, so here's the web page. As you're looking at the web page on it, again, don't read too crazy into it. It gives you your points, it goes through it. As Greg mentioned, there's the master series that's already set on it. Read those articles. Those guys already have a set of articles in there on it that have gone through this and kind of give you some more information about it. The pages on it, we'll break it down a little bit more on it. There's the statement of qualifications, it's 2 pages on it, and then there's the list for it. So it kind of goes through, breaks down each section. You've got the terrain, structures, background, lighting, and then realism and conformity, how it all blends together on it. This is your statement of qualifications. The second page shows it who did it. They check off the boxes for it, all right? And then again, this is the evaluation form. Mark it up, and the evaluators come in, they grade you on those scores for it, how it fits into it. What I did with mine, and I'll break it down a little bit tighter on it, is I went through, kind of like with Greg when we were talking about the number of materials you had, I just made an inventory. I went through and said, okay, here's all the stuff that I've got. Here's where I've used it, what I've used on it, and how it's all blended into it, okay? Ground covers, all the different types of ground covers. If it's out there and if I see it at a swap meet, and if it's like a used box of stuff, I'm gonna probably grab it if it's a decent price. Just simply for the fact is that I can take 2 or 3, dump them together, and then mix them together and spread it out. You get that color into it. I talk about the landforms. What did I use for landforms? I've used cardboard strips. I've used plaster cloth. I don't like the plaster cloth myself. I know some people like it because it is stronger. The modular guys, I know the module building guys really like it because you've got that plaster and you've got that gauze that's built into it. So if you get that in the layers, you get some really good strength out of it. You're moving those things around a lot, so it's got to have some flexibility and it's got to have some strength out of it. So I know they use those well. Rock formations. Just note the different way they've used rock formations. I've marked in there all the different types that I've used on it. Vegetation, I marked in it as well that I've done a clinic on it, how I've used it, how I've made my own scenery materials, how I've harvested my own scenery materials. You can go out and sift dirt. Guys have gone out and got actual pieces of coal, crushed it up, sifted it, and then used that for their coal piles at the different spots. You don't have to buy all this stuff yourself. You can make some of it your own. My second page and the last went into a little bit more into different parts. The backdrop, I explained where the backdrop, how I did it. The water features, like I said, I used all gloss medium on mine. I've tried the other ones. For me, the most success I've had was with the gloss medium. I'm most comfortable with that one. So that's the best one for me on it. This is the one end where it's a turn back loop that comes around it. That's pretty much a complete scene. Different parts of how I've got signals into it, the power poles, the telegraph lines back then, the interlocking, got one little industry into it, some trees. I've used, as far as tree materials, I've made my own trees. I've made trees out of, for pine trees, I've taken the metal and then put the material across it and then twisted it in the drill. I've done that. I've made regular deciduous trees with the roots. I've used super trees. I've bought some trees. So it's all just that different mix on how you get them into it. Resources, use your resources, look for it. If you're stuck on an idea for something like that, find the different things. I was saying just look on the website. Boomer Diorama is a good one where it kind of goes into it and kind of gives you these ideas of this background of getting these scenery ideas on it. The NMRA magazine, the flyer. You guys would be surprised if you guys don't read the flyer on it. Well, with the articles that are in it, Alex does a great job, and the guys that submit to it do a great job because that is our flyer, our newsletter is well known through the NMRA. A lot of people look for it and go on the website to read it, just for the different articles that are in it. Unless you have anything else, I am done.